Hi, and welcome to the show. Subscribe at kevinmd.com/podcast. Today, we welcome Lincoln Harris. He's a dentist, and today's Kevin MD article is How Cloud-Based Simulation Training is Revolutionizing Dentistry. Lincoln, welcome to the show.
Kevin, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, let's start by briefly sharing your story and journey.
I was a dentist in Australia in a small rural village, and there were no specialists. So, for my patients, if they were to get specialist treatment, I had to go and learn it myself. So, I spent about 6 years flying backwards and forwards across the Pacific to the United States, developed skills in orthodontics, prosthodontics, in implant dentistry. And so my patients could get all of these treatments in office. And then other dentists started to ask me, how do you learn this? Where do you go? So I'd give them this big list of 20 courses I'd been to. And at some point, it dawned on me that I could teach them myself. So I started training dentists in multiple procedures in about 2013. And then after about 6 years of that, I had requests all over the world, and I hit the limit on transporting bodies in planes. So basically, I thought we need a better way to teach procedures that's scalable, it's more efficient, and even more effective. And so there was two real breakthroughs. The first one was if we taught pilots the way we teach dentists, they'd all be dead. Dentists don't do anywhere near enough repetitions in training at any stage. And they basically just get sent out into the world to figure it out themselves, even after they graduate. So that was problem number one, not enough repetitions. And then problem number two is dentistry is kind of this global industry, and people want to learn from everyone, everywhere, all of the time, and you just can't fly that much. So the limit, of course, was I had no time. And then COVID came, and I had time. And so I spent COVID basically developing simulation training, which was also, I guess, slightly hastened by the fact that no one was flying at all. So we developed the mannequins, we developed the software, we developed the method, and we now teach dentists new procedures in 35 countries.
So tell us what that looks like. Obviously, I'm a physician, I'm not a dentist. So in terms of what this simulation-based training would look like, you mentioned software and mannequins. Just give us a sense of what that looks like for non-dentists.
Yeah, so dentists at dental school learn their basic procedures on mannequins in sim labs. So they're a big building full of fake heads that have plastic teeth, and then they practice repetitions on plastic teeth before they start to treat patients. But the environment is super artificial, and they don't do enough repetitions. Now, once they graduate, it gets worse than that, because often they get taught new procedures in a hotel conference room. So you don't even have a head, you just have a set of teeth that you can pick up and, drill from any angle, because there's no cheeks or necks or eyes in the way. So then you have to go from that to implementing. So we want to do a simulation. We want to make it as realistic as possible. So first of all, for a dentist, we want them to train in their normal operatory with their normal equipment, their normal materials, their normal posture, and maybe even their normal staff. And then secondly, we obviously need something for them to practice on. You can't practice things on a patient. So we manufacture mannequins that are designed to sit on their chair. And then we have developed training exercises to teach a variety of different skills. And so when they join a class, they don't join by location, they join by time zone. So all the people who are in like the Americas can technically join. If they're on the East Coast, they can all join Eastern Standard Time class. And to give you an example of how this might look, we recently ran a class for 20 dentists between Michigan, New York City, and Florida, teaching them how to do crowns better. I was teaching them from Colorado, and I'm from Australia. And the other teacher on the class is from Germany, but he was on sabbatical in Colombia. So you had a dentist in Colombia and Colorado teaching 20 dentists who are sprinkled across the United States, everywhere from Chicago to New York City to Florida. So that's the power of what we do.
So logistically speaking, the teachers like yourself, would this appear on screens? What would that look like for the trainees during this course?
Yeah, the method that we have right now, and then the method we have next year will advance. But right now, what we found is that if a dentist takes photographs of their work, uploads it, and then gets feedback on the photographs, It's far superior than the traditional method, which is someone pointing at things with a pointer.
Hmm.
So in dental school, people lean over your shoulder and point at things. And we go, well, if you take a photograph and enlarge it to full screen, it's massively magnified. And if you draw on it, the visualization of the problem is massively more obvious. And we know this because our research shows that dentists learn more than 50% faster with this method. Now, you could use the method of uploading photographs in a sim lab where you're sitting with them, but there's no point because once you're uploading photographs onto a screen, you can be anywhere in the world.
Hmm.
So that method we developed. And then, of course, to run it, we have a global logistics and manufacturing part to the business. And then we have software engineers because you need specialized software to be able to run these courses.
And you mentioned how to do crowns better. What kind of other dental procedures are you training these dentists to do using your simulation?
Fillings, crowns, orthodontic implants, and then implant dentistry. And then we'll soon add root canal therapy, pediatrics, hygiene, dental assisting. Pretty much, if it's a procedure, this system is designed that the method and the system we've developed can be used to teach a procedure anywhere. So any procedure anywhere.
Hmm.
Right now, I'm focused on dentistry because I haven't raised enough capital to go into other verticals.
And what about outcomes in terms of the dentists that are being trained by your system? Any difference or improvements in terms of the outcomes and complications?
So, yeah, I mean, the complication rate was actually one of the first inspirations to do this because the very first course that we taught in 2013, straight afterwards, we got a lot of dentists sending me pictures of their complications. This was in a traditional method which almost every other educator uses, which is a lot of didactics, a demonstration by an expert, and then maybe one or two repetitions done on something artificial like a fake set of teeth or a pig's jaw or something like this. And so initially, I was sitting there going, when I learnt to fly, or more importantly, when I learnt to land a plane, we practiced that over and over and over again because
Hmm.
otherwise you die. You can't just do like a lecture and then one demonstration and then land a plane. You'll die. And it's the same when I learned to scuba dive. Like you have to do a lot of repetitions with things, otherwise you die. But in dentistry, the dentist doesn't die. So you can maybe be a bit more slack. So the outcomes improve dramatically when you make someone do 20 repetitions of something instead of one. And our implementation rates with this method, dentists implement procedures at about 4 times the rate of a traditional method. So the statistics are quite shocking for implementation of new procedures. Roughly 15 to 18% of dentists will implement a new procedure after they go to a course.
Now, you wrote in your article that sometimes the traditional dental establishment wasn't so receptive of this approach. Why do you think that is?
It's different. I mean, it's not just different as in you don't understand it, because if you haven't run this program for years, then it's hard to visualize.
Hmm.
But it's also different in that building courses is actually a huge amount of work, particularly if they're accredited. And when you remove the constraints of time and place, you can build completely different educational pathways. So that means you have to rewrite your entire curriculum. And so obviously no one's excited to do that. I don't even like writing a curriculum in the first place, let alone
Hmm.
rewriting one. So I can see why, but mostly it's that people can't visualize that an online simulation is better than what they would consider the gold standard of being in person.
Now, in terms of the implementation and accessibility of a simulation like this, is it available worldwide? How easy is it to enroll in a class like this?
So we obviously are heavily focused on the United States, but we train dentists in 35 countries so far. So we have dentists all through Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, that region, as well as a whole number of countries in Europe. As long as they speak English, we're not multilingual yet. Obviously, all over the UK, and then all across the United States and Canada and the Caribbean. What's interesting, of course, is that we built this to solve the problem of travel.
Hmm.
what we've inadvertently solved is the problem of training surgical professionals at enormous scale. So in the United States right now, there are groups buying up dental practices to form dental service organizations, or DSOs, backed by private equity, and they're going crazy. Like, there's 2,800 of these groups, growing 17% compounding, and still only at about 30 something percent of the market. And they have no easily achievable way of training their dentists. And when they employ a new dentist, they're actually not profitable. When you graduate, you actually are not productive enough, and you don't do procedures that are good enough to make a profit for the person who owns the clinic. So what we've found is that, like, basically we now have an enormous demand problem. For 4.5 or 5 years, we were building all of this. We had customers because you need them to test everything, but we're basically in research and development mode until the start of 2025, when I moved to the United States. And then we went, okay, let's fully invest in going to market. And now suddenly we have so much demand from large dental groups that we now have a supply problem. At the moment, I'm in the process of raising capital from investors, mostly so we can build out our go-to-market and just scale up all of our systems and processes, because the demand is insatiable. It's incredible.
And in terms of a cost standpoint, the cost of running these simulations versus the traditional method of training dentists,
Yeah, so
contrast
the
those
cost
differences.
cost is about one quarter all in cost. So the biggest cost with a graduated surgeon or physician or anyone who earns a high income, its number one cost is loss of income.
Mhm.
So if you fly a whole bunch of dentists to a institute, the biggest cost is that they lose an extra day of travel, which is a day of earning money. So that's number one. And then, of course, you have flights, accommodation, all those sorts of things. And then we don't have a massive, 100,000 square foot institute to pay for. So our capital cost is much lower. So all in, it's about one quarter of the cost. So when you combine a quarter of the cost with 4 times the implementation rate, the return on investment for people who are paying for this is extraordinary. So, and that's why the demand's gone crazy.
Now, what do you see as the path forward? Do you eventually see dental schools using some of this cloud-based simulation in terms of the traditional method of education? Where do you see yourself in this technology in the
Yeah,
foreseeable future?
yeah, it's a great question. So there's two paths that we're focusing on at the moment, right now. Obviously, we're scaling up the go-to-market, but the future product mix is, number one, to get the whole platform able to be used by any educator in the world. So right now, we've built this whole platform that we use exclusively for ourselves, but all over the world, I have people reach out to me and go, "Can we use it?" Because they get sick of flying too. At some point, when you start flying around the world, it's exciting, but after a few years of it, it's less exciting.
Mhm.
But I had a conversation with a dental school just yesterday. Basically, their buildings are maxed out. They're in the middle of a very expensive city in the United States. They can't expand easily without it costing hundreds of millions of dollars. They want to train more dentists from overseas. They want to have their overseas dentists more aligned to a quality standard before they turn up in the United States. So they have all of these problems, and basically they're going, "We're trying to work out what to do with it."
Mhm.
And you've literally solved that. So yeah, I think at some point we'll end up in the vast majority of dental schools in the world. And it's not, obviously, that's just for the simulation part, but then we've just patented sensor enabled mannequins. So you're getting real time data from the dentist's hand and from the teeth while they're practicing. We have data stored from the last 5 years of training. And so, from an AI point of view, our AI focus is to take this huge collection of data and start to automate a lot of these feedback processes. So either we can get the cost down enough to go into lower cost markets like India, or to build we have this enormous data set on why dentists do things. So once they get in the clinic, there's all this AI that tells you what they do, but we can tell you why, because we can understand all of their learning triggers, their speed of implementation, their hand efficiency metrics. Those hand efficiency metrics we can roll across any type of surgery. So, we have built a platform that scales up and allows us to collect some of the most useful data that you can ever get from a person who does procedures.
We're talking to Lincoln Harris. He's a dentist. Today's Kevin MD article is How Cloud-Based Simulation Training is Revolutionizing Dentistry. Lincoln, let's end with some take-home messages they want to leave with the Kevin MD audience.
I think that the number one message I would like to leave people with is that experience and repetitions in an evidence-based world still matter a great deal. And everyone who's ever been on a plane wants their pilot to have thousands of hours of experience, not just to have read 1,000 papers.
Lincoln, thank you so much for sharing your perspective and insight. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. Appreciate it.